This is Milah Libin, Editor-in-Chief of Dizzy Magazine. I will be reading my introduction and interview with Motoyuki Daifu in our 6th issue. The vibrant primary colors of Motoyuki Daifu's photography drew me into his work, and the enigmatic histories kept me there. The natural and undisturbed placement of objects within his images are dense and exciting. However, the lifestyle depicted is ordinary in both Daifu and his subjects' worlds. In both Project Family and Love City, the family members and lovers captured in their daily routines are unconcerned with Daifu's presence, which of course allows for the purity and honesty so viscerally captured. In his still life series, there are packaged Japanese food products alongside home-cooked meals and miscellaneous objects, such as a box of Band-Aids and a leather wallet. Scattered and layered across tabletops from an aerial view, the perspective is perhaps how we would look for something to eat, or something we lost. Daifu holds power over the viewer, leaving us in a state of searching through endless details. A Winnie the Pooh table mat, box of toothpicks, or the light catching his mother's glasses. We enter closed apartment doors, observe private lives made possible by personal relations, and are left there, unsure of what we hope to discover. Daifu's authority is further seen in the boldness of the images, saturated and sharply in focus. With a comedic sensibility that was further evident when speaking with Daifu in his Instagram postings and in his dynamic with gallery owners Misako and Jeffrey Rosen, Daifu speaks about his practice with a calm frankness. In the following interview, I will be referring to myself as ML, Motoyuki Daifu as MD, and Jeffrey Rosen as JR. ML. I want to start with the basic autobiographical questions. Can you tell me where you grew up? MD. I was born in Tokyo and moved to Shizuoka from 2nd to 5th grade, and moved to Yokohama in 6th grade. ML. So many different places. When you first started taking photos, I read that your father had given you a film camera and film, and you were mostly taking landscape photos. I'm curious as to when you started to photograph people and specifically your family. MD. Did I say that in an interview? How I started taking photos. I don't know exactly what you read, but I started shooting at 19 when enrolled in a professional photography school. Imagining from the interview you read, I may have borrowed my father's camera as he was a photographer. I may have started to borrow my father's camera after deciding on the school. For me, I decided I wanted to become a photographer after starting school. ML. Okay, that's interesting. So it wasn't until you started studying photography that you identified and took yourself seriously as a photographer, even if you were taking photos before then. As a child, were you interested? Did you think maybe someday I will be a photographer? MD. I wasn't interested. Actually, I wasn't very happy that my father was a photographer. When I was a kid, I thought photos were for railroads or erotic images. I didn't find it cool and didn't want to tell people. I don't think I told my friends what he did. ML. Since your dad was a photographer and artist, was he showing you other photographers and art, or was his work the only impression you had of photography? MD. My father was a photographer for stock photos, for images used in textbooks around the world. ML. Your eye is raw and honest and seems to be a part of Project Family and how the subjects react to the camera. It seems like you're not changing anything and letting it naturally unfold. I have 2 questions. The first one is, once you started taking photos of your family, did the way you viewed them change in any way, once you were seeing them through the lens of a camera? MD. It may have changed since they became my subjects. The way I think of them may have changed since I decided to photograph them as a part of an artwork project. ML. Do you think that your relationships have changed
since you started photographing them. In the photos, they are just continuing to live their lives, like nothing changes. But I also wonder if there was some shift between you and your family. MD. I started to communicate with them more. Before I started photographing my family, I didn't interact with them through photos, so I would stay in my room alone and wouldn't be too involved with them. But as I started to see them as subjects to photograph, I started to actively go where everyone else was, hoping for something interesting to happen. So I think that I started communicating more. People sometimes see the photos and say that my family is so close, but I don't think of it that way. We're a normal family, and I don't think that we are that interested in each other. ML. I think you see that as a narrative throughout the photos, where certain family members are together more, and then some of the portraits are just of your mom alone. So I think that definitely translates. They all have their own stories within the creator's family. I think there's a balance between the subjects, not just the family, but the series of people, where they are aware of the camera and engaging with it, or there's no concern about the camera being there. For example, the series of your ex-girlfriend, Love City. In some of the portraits, the subject engages with the fact that a photo is being taken, like smiling at the camera, and sometimes it's like you're getting a peek into their lives. I'm curious about your way of working when you are often living with your subjects. If you always have your camera on you, if you're always looking for things to take photos of, or if you're having conversations with them while you're photographing them. MD. I think most of it was shot as is. At that time, I probably had my camera with me all the time. ML. It's interesting to think about the way that you move with the camera, or when you decide to... I feel like it would be hard to feel like, what if I missed something? MD. I felt that way at first, very strongly. JR. When in the relationship did you know you were going to be photographing her as a subject? When you first got together? MD. For any girlfriend I have, it's natural for me to shoot photos. Especially back then, since it was right after I graduated from photography school and I was constantly taking pictures. I shot while hanging out with people, and I have so many insignificant photos from that time too. ML. In the intimate settings for all these series, is there a conversation that you have with the subjects where you're like, I'll be taking photos now? MD. Did I tell her? There was an initial acknowledgement that I was a photographer, so she may not have asked. ML. Is it hard for your subjects to become less aware of the camera? Because I think in a lot of your work, they're not paying much attention to that. I wonder if that takes time for the subject to become used to, or if it's an instant natural thing between you two. MD. From the very beginning. ML. Do you have an interest in photographing other families or intimate relationships, or do you feel like it is always something that is connected to you? MD. It doesn't have to be my family, but my initial interest in shooting was obsessively photographing something specific, but I haven't been doing too much of that recently. Also, I think it's all about chance encounters, so when the time comes, I might find something that interests me enough to be obsessive about, but I don't know. It could be another family or a group of people that sparks my interest enough to start shooting. ML. I did have a question about the still lifes. It still feels like there's character within them, and a narrative, and I'm curious if that's something that you're thinking about, the character, the story, or if it's more visual. Do you see the objects as characters, or objects that hold energy in a way? MD. They are more of a visual choice. This was a series of various photographers' dining styles, and I wanted to try a new style that I hadn't tried before, so I shot them from directly above. So I think I'm more interested in the visuals. ML. Since that relationship to the subject is so different than throwing yourself into the dynamic of different people, and now there is no person, I wonder if that feels like some sort of relief, or if there's more of a calmness about it. Is it a different feeling that you get from not having to be so emotionally involved? MD. There was Love City in 2012, Project Family 2013, and then Still Life 2014. But I'm not really interested in the emotional parts. Love City seems like the most emotional, but I wanted to take away the emotional feeling as much as possible. But in the end, I think it ended up becoming emotional work. I'm not interested in warm photos of families taken by other photographers or other people, and I don't really like feeling emotional. So that could have been the reason I shifted my interest to things. ML. Most of your work is a series or a thought-out project. Is that something that comes first where you say, I'm going to document this for a specific time? Or do you feel like now this is done and I can move on to the next series? MD. Love City was taken during a certain period of time. I still take photos of Project Family. I stopped taking photos of the Still Life series after it was published. ML. Are you hoping to continue in the same vein of photographing more objects or non-humans, such as landscapes? Now, do you feel like this is the direction you want to continue? MD. It's true, the people in my photos are now gone. He laughs. When I showed my work to the photographer Keizo Kitajima, he said to me, You must not like people. ML. I have one more question. I want to talk about how you choose to exhibit your work. I see that sometimes it's more immersive, where there are objects from the photos. I think it's interesting when they're all in sequence as well. I know you've collaged them before, and they almost always end up becoming a book. MD. My style of arranging the work side by side in the same size came from the fact that Wolfgang Tillmans became popular when I was in photography school. Everyone started doing installations like him, and I wasn't sure at first, but since I started showing at Misako and Rosen, I realized the sensitive installation style wasn't for me. I decided to show in a more bold, somewhat stupid and orthodox way of presentation. ML. Is that the ideal way for the viewer? JR. His approach is more detached and almost literal, so the literalness of the serial quality of the work at the time we showed at the gallery was a different space. It had a similar quality. It was almost comedic, so it worked well with the detached quality of his work, and the installations reflect that. The other thing that may be important to mention is that I think Daifu considers himself a contemporary artist, not as a photographer. ML. Has Instagram changed how you photograph or approach your work? MD. I used to shoot my friends in film on a daily basis, but now it seems that Instagram photos have replaced those moments. All of the artwork in this feature are courtesy of the artist and Misako and Rosen. Photography by Milah Libin, introduction translation by Mirimatsu Fuji, and interview translation by Reiko Lux. On the first page with the introduction is a photo of Motoyuki Daifu. He stands in front of a white wall and is wearing a pink long-sleeve shirt and white pants. Overlaid onto the photo is the title Motoyuki Daifu. On the next page is a photo from his Still Life series. There are packaged foods, a blanket with a baseball player on it, and a pizza. On the next page is another photo from his Still Life series. There's an opened packet of pasta with a fork in it, a juice box, a Porter-branded wallet, a bag of candy, tea, cheese, Tupperware, matches, chopsticks, Q-tips, and more plastic packaged food. The next image is a spread from Motoyuki Daifu's Project Family series. It shows a woman lying on a mattress, and next to her is a man sitting in front of a computer. The room is scattered with various objects, including clothing, a camera, cups, bags, blankets, tin cans, and drawers. The woman sleeping is wearing glasses, and the man sitting is wearing a white tank top and white underwear with a white t-shirt wrapped around his head. The next image is from Motoyuki Daifu's Still Life series. A yellow bowl holds vegetable tempura on top of a paper napkin. To the right is a white bowl with some remnants of a finished meal inside of it. Next to the plates is a tin that carries tennis balls. It is yellow with red text on it reading Leopard 4 Championship Tennis Balls, nylon wool leaf cover. On the other side of the bowls are a box of toothpicks, a glass with some sort of liquid in it, a box of Band-Aids, a black teapot, and a bottled beverage. The following spread has 2 images from his Project Family series. On the left page is his mom sitting at a table eating food with chopsticks. She is mid-bite. She wears glasses and leans on her left hand. The table is covered in packaged food, including peanut butter, soy sauce, opened plates with pasta, seasoning, cups with chopsticks in them, and other various canned and packaged food. On the right page, a boy lies his head on top of a table covered with a Winnie the Pooh tablecloth. His eyes are rolled back into his head, half closed. In front of his face is a ceramic plate with a half-eaten fish. Its bones are visible. The next spread are 2 more photos from the Project Family series. The photo on the left has no people in it, but rather is just an image of a bedroom. There is a bunk bed, a desk, a chair, a fan, clothes hanging from a drying clothes rack, bags hanging from the bunk bed, what looks like a Mickey Mouse glove on top of the post of the bunk bed, other various items such as clothing, trash, a boombox scatter the floor. The photo on the right side of the page is Daifu's mother cutting onions. She is wearing her glasses, looking down at the knife as she cuts. She is wearing a black and white suit jacket and has a lilac, silky-looking pouch. Behind her are shelves with dishes, and in front of her on the table are various bowls and cups. The last spread of the piece have images from Daifu's series, untitled, surround. One of them is an image of a canned drink with the text Daido Blend and Japanese lettering on it. There are coffee beans, so we can assume that it is a coffee drink. To the right of it is the image of a white house with a triangular rooftop. The image is slightly askew and the angle is offset. The next 2 images are flipped on their side. The first one is of a brown house with a car starting to drive in front of it, and the last one is looking down a road of what looks like a suburban area with lots of telephone wires and driveways. The paved road is lined with trees.